Republicans cementing their grip on power in Washington by holding on to the House. So what will the first order of business be for a united GOP? Let's bring in the Republican Wyoming Senator John Barrasso. He is the new Senate Majority Whip-elect. Congratulations.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
I guess it all becomes official on January the 3rd. So holding the presidency, the House, and the Senate, President Trump, when he gets in office, is going to expect that a lot is going to get done. Is the Senate going to serve as a rubber stamp for the president, or will there be thoughtful consideration of everything that he tries to put through?
Well, I think what the president is trying to put through represents an American agenda brought forth by the voters, and when they told us what they want. They want secure borders, they want lower prices, they want to make sure the economy kicks into gear, they want to make sure that we have more American energy, they want to restore our strength on the world stage. Those are the things that the Americans want, the things the House wants, the Senate wants, and it's everything that President Trump talked about during the election. That is the reason that we won. We've been meeting today. I just came from a meeting of all the Republicans who will take over as the chairman of the committees in the United States Senate. The leadership team met earlier today, all focused on things that President Trump can do immediately in terms of restoring control at the border, like get back to enforcing the law and bringing back things like remain in Mexico. We know those things worked. What he can do immediately to take the handcuffs off of American energy so we can produce American energy here. And then, of course, making sure he has his team in place quickly. A cabinet of people that he will surround himself with. No surprise, he's making bold decisions, bold appointments, and he's doing it much more rapidly this time and more thoughtfully, I think, than what happened when he won in 2016, because he's been thinking about this all along.
And he has the first term to sort of learn from his experiences, something he's spoken about. He wishes that he had made some different key decisions from the outset. Were you surprised, Senator? I don't know if I would say I'm surprised, but I noted this week that when he's laying out the top-tier cabinet post, he's decided first to go with a sort of national security bent, looking at his national security advisor, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense nominations, as opposed to more of an economic focus, Treasury, Commerce. I assume they'll be coming in the forthcoming days. But it was interesting to me to see that that was what he prioritized.
It was, and we're going to hate to lose Marco Rubio in the United States Senate, but he is just the right person to be Secretary of State. He knows the issues. He's going to project the same kind of a strength around the world that President Trump has been projecting, and it's such opposite of what we've seen under the Biden administration, which was a position of weakness, which invited those to come in and be aggressive toward us. So I think that was a great choice, and we're going to make sure, and as we were talking today at our leadership meeting, we take over, as you said, January 3rd. The president doesn't come in until January 20th. We want to start holding hearings on those nominees early so that by January 20th, we can get ready that day to vote and get as many cabinet positions filled day number one, so the president has his team around him as quickly as possible, because time is of the essence. The president really does feel the clock ticking already, because he says, I only have 4 years. We have a lot of what we need to get done if we want to get America back on track. And that's what the American people demanded with this election outcome.
So a big part of the conversation in the last 24 hours has been the nomination of Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. Will he get confirmed?
But he'll certainly have a fair hearing, and people will have a chance to vote. What I want to do, and specifically with this, and you would expect the president to make bold decisions and appointments. Look what happened to the president over the last 4 years. We have seen the Justice Department in this administration weaponized, politicized. They've dragged President Trump through the court repeatedly. Nobody should be above the law, but nobody should be the target of the law. And what we've had is President Trump being the target of the law. So when he talks about draining the swamp, it's not just all of Washington, specific the Department of Justice. So this is no surprise that the president has made a bold announcement and decision there. But everyone that he has nominated so far, better than the people that are in there right now.
A warning from your friend and colleague, Senator Chuck Schumer. Take a listen to what he had to say yesterday. I'm curious what your response is.
To my Republican colleagues, I offer a word of caution in good faith. Take care not to misread the will of the people, and do not abandon the need for bipartisanship. After winning an election, the temptation may be to go to the extreme. We've seen that happen over the decades, and it's consistently backfired on the party in power.
What do you make of those words?
Well, the will of the people is fairly well known to people all across the country who looked at the results on election night. We want to get the country back on track. Under the past administration, at the end of that, only 1 in 4 Americans say the country's heading in the right direction. This was an election of, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Overwhelmingly, the American people said no. So what we've seen with this election, to whatever Chuck Schumer wants to believe, is fine with him. But what I know is that the Republican Party has changed, it's expanded. Hardworking American families, young people, minorities, all of these folks who have been just struggling to get by. I think we are unified in trying to say we need to get the country back on track. And the story that you just played prior to that, what the Democrats are trying to force through in the final days before the next Congress takes over, illegal immigrants becoming citizens, all of these sorts of things. They're trying to hijack the election, hijack the process with these midnight regulations and rules. And I think it's wrong to try to do that. We ought to let the new governing majority take on in the House and the Senate and the White House and get this American agenda right on the move to success.
Schumer's statement about don't misread the will of the American people is sort of ironic, given the fact that so many Democrats believe that that's exactly what the Harris campaign did.
Well, they weren't listening to the American people. They were so focused on Donald Trump, they didn't listen to the people that are saying, we want to shut the border, we want to secure the border, we want to unleash American energy, we got to get prices down.
Senator, we'll let you get back to work. We know there's a lot to get done.
Thanks.
Appreciate you coming in.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you for taking time with us.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.